Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. You definitely wouldn't want to spend a weekend with people like this. More details in our first story. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled Mom Wanted My Kayak. I live in an area with a lot of water. There's tons of places to kayak, canoe, jet ski, etc., so most people who live here have their own recreational boats or toys. My boyfriend and I recently got a barely used two-person kayak at a garage sale for a steal, and we're eager to try it out. My friend really doesn't get out on the water too much, so she doesn't have her own boat, but she did want to tag along when we went to a spot where you can rent or bring your own. Unbeknownst to us, her mother and younger brother wanted to tag along too. This wouldn't have bothered me if they weren't the most insufferable people on the planet. The rental spot has a bar, so by the time we got there, they were already pretty crap-faced. At 9 a.m. We decided to forgo drinking until after we ride and started to get our boat out on the water. I hop into the front seat and wait for my boyfriend to park the car and come back. My friend Kate, K, Entitled Mom, EM, and her son Stu come over to the boat launch, and EM is disappointed to see that they didn't have any two-person kayaks left, and that S and her will either have to use singles or share a canoe. Seeing me floating a few feet away in a two-person kayak set her off, and she yelled for me to get out and get this damn canoe. By that time, my boyfriend was wading through the water to get to me and politely offered that maybe if at the halfway mark to the lake, if she was too tired, we could switch, but that we wanted to use our own kayak. She demanded that because she was the adult in the group, we had to do what she says. We're 28, she's in her 50s. My boyfriend laughed awkwardly and just hopped into the back of the boat while the rental attendants looked annoyed as hell. Because we were only in like 2 feet of water at this point, she drunkenly charged through the water and grabbed my arms, trying to drag me out of the boat. Kay was already behind her, pulling her back and yelling at her to stop while S stood on the shore chugging the last of his beer. The attendants yelled for her to knock it off and waved over security while my boyfriend was already dragging her out of the water. He tossed her off to them, Kay apologizing over and over. As pissed off as I was fine seeing that crazy woman get thrown out of the park with her son. Kay had to leave with them since they couldn't drive home, so we thought. We took off on the boat and came back a few hours later. The attendants told us she started another fight in the parking lot, tried to come back inside the park to drink some more, and eventually was carted away in a police car after she started throwing rocks at people. Anyways, I enjoyed my day and don't hold anything against Kay. I'm gonna try again this weekend. Sounds like the entitled idiot and her son are both pumping up their qualifications for AA. And our second story. Made my boss, who barely worked, get reprimanded and fired by the director. So this story takes place about 3 years ago, when I was doing an internship alongside two of my friends from the same class. Not a native English speaker, also on phone, so expect mistakes. So to give some basic details, me and my two friends got an internship at a large school under their IT department. Fix IT-related problems all over school and fix problems for students, teachers, guests, etc. Now the job was okay, nothing to write home about, and the pay was $5 a day to make up for gas expenditures. So imagine working from 8 to 5, often having to finish up stretching that from 8 to 6 for $25 a week for 4 months. So essentially slave labor in exchange for fulfilling a school requirement. So when we started, we met our boss in our shared office. We'll call him Ron. He seemed all right, but not much of a talker. Someone you could tell a joke and he'd stare at you, not sure how to react. So the first week went all right. He was supposed to have us tag along and show us the ropes, but he more or less just sent us out to do crap. Pretty crappy thing to do for a bunch of barely adult lads just starting their education. But regardless, we made it work, more or less, did Ron's job and told my friends what to do and how to do it, splitting up the jobs, saying who did what, etc. Ron's initial interaction became worse though. When he entered, he took a long coffee break, 5 minutes after entering, usually from 20 minutes to an hour, despite there being a coffee machine right outside our office. He'd come back, do close to nothing, and take his lunch break at 11, ranging from 2 to 4 hours, and when he came back, he'd take at least 2 more coffee breaks. To boil it down, on a good day, he would work 5 to 6 hours of his 9-hour contract. On a bad day, maybe 3 to 4 hours. After about 3 months of this, we're all tired of his bullcrap. We worked 4 extra hours on average a week. We didn't learn crap and barely had time for our own lunch breaks, which we usually ended up taking a quick bite in between phone calls or job. So I started following the exact details of the contract instead. Several smoke breaks, 1-hour lunch break, etc. I got permission from the boss to take our breaks together since we didn't have time to meet any co-workers. As such, it'd be uncomfortable to take lunch breaks alone. It's worth noting Ron drove home during his lunch breaks, hence them being so long, and he was the main contact if the office phones were not answered, but he rarely answered his phone, it was usually off. So whenever Ron went on his break, we waited exactly 1 hour, his lunchtime, before going on our own break, and then we extended our break to 2 hours, usually arriving back at the office before Ron had come back. Well, we carried this on for several weeks. Every time work had piled up, there were people waiting in front of the office and the phones had a dozen missed calls. Well, one day we were on our break and Ron calls, saying his work phone was full of missed calls, obviously panicking, telling us to go to the office. Well, I politely inform him I just started my break and he's supposed to be at the office himself, given his lunch break's long over. Right, Ron? Before saying that I'd see him in 50 minutes when our break is over. So we get back there and find the director talking loudly at him and deflecting, saying there must have been a schedule mix-up, etc. Well, we think it ended there. Ron observes the rules for a few days before falling into his old behavior, and at that point, our time is up. We say our goodbyes and go to the director to get our internship results. So he says we all did great and he heard good things about us, but our attendance had not been good for the past 3 weeks, so he couldn't give us the full grade. So at that point, I stop him and tell him the entire story about Ron and his breaks and that we followed the rules to the letter. I also show him our work schedule, which is filled in and shows we were not skipping much of anything. Well, he pretty much flips his crap and basically thanks us for keeping the entire IT operation running and that he'll have a word with Ron and that he'll change our grades back. After that, I didn't hear anything, so I decided to message the ex-coworker from the internship to see what happened. Apparently, Ron got berated, told to fix his act, slipped back into his behavior, and got fired. And our next story. Need me to adhere to the dress code right now? Enjoy the fallout. I was reminded of this story from my work by one of my coworkers. It's been maybe 5 to 7 years since this happened. Where I work, there's a semi-strict dress code that needs to be adhered to, so we look presentable when going to customers' houses. The minor details are more or less negotiable depending on who's our manager that day. We have a normal manager we see almost daily. But if he's off or it's a weekend, someone else subs in. The day this happened was a Saturday, and our regular manager was off, so the duty manager for the day happened to be Mr. Hardbutt, whom no one liked, and he made it his life's goal to make all the techs miserable. When we walked in the door, we had to pass through the manager's office to get to our meeting area. My coworker, Tim, name changed, walked in the door, was into the manager's office with everything looking right on his uniform, but his shirt untucked. The following conversation took place. Mr. Hardbutt, your shirt should be tucked in. Tim, absolutely, and I'll do that when I set my gear down and go to the bathroom. No, you need to show up for work ready to work, not show up and get ready on my time. Okay, let me set my stuff down and I'll go right to the bathroom and tuck it in for you. No, you're gonna tuck it in right now before you walk another step into my building. Right now? Right now! So my coworker did as instructed, unbuttoned his pants and pulled them all the way down to his ankles and proceeded to smooth out his shirt, then reach all the way down and pull his pants all the way back up and rebutton them. From there, he immediately walked outside and called the HR hotline and told him his manager on duty just forced him to undo his pants and semi-strip in front of him in his personal office and wouldn't allow him to go to the bathroom to tuck his shirt in. That he felt weird and uncomfortable to be around Mr. Hardbutt and didn't know if he had any ulterior motives. None of us are privy to what exactly happened from that phone call on, but we do know that he got laterally moved from being a tech manager to the safety team where he was no longer in charge of any subordinates. I'll make an edit to iron out some details or important things I forgot. Our job is very much union-based. As such, the union book is the law of the land, so language and actions have to be very specific as to not draw ire from the union nor the business. Tim was raised in a union household by someone who was very involved in the union, so he has very keen knowledge on how to manipulate things well within the trappings of the union handbook. He did this whole thing not next to the boss's desk, but within sight of the door coming in and the door to the meeting room, so there were visual witnesses from the meeting room and people who trickled into work behind him who literally walked through the entire ordeal. So there were plenty of witnesses to corroborate. That's awesome. For real, he should have let Tim go into the effing bathroom. And our last story. Karen, claiming to be a billionaire, threatens to sue my mom. For context, my mom's in her early 40s. She's a broker. She once told me about this story, and I thought I should post it here. We'll be referring to the Karen as EB. That's entitled Billionaire. So when my mom first met EB, she seemed like a pretty kind and nice woman. They quickly became friends. Until they had a meeting, EB showed up 2 hours late to the meeting and didn't even apologize or tell my mom why. Here's a rough recreation of what happened. Mom: EB, could you please tell me why you were late? EB doesn't say anything. I've waited 2 hours for you to come to this meeting. EB used to be Mom's client, and she was lucky she even got a chance. Eventually, things got heated up, and this is where my favorite part of the story starts. My mom gets mad and doesn't sell the property. Guess how EB reacts? What? Why can't you sell the property to me? Well, you arrived 2 hours late, and so what? I'm still a client, and you should excuse me for coming late. EB starts trying to attack Mom, but gets escorted out of the room. Let me go! I didn't do anything wrong! I can sue all of you! I have billions of dollars, and once I get out of this shed, I'll sue you all! Everyone in the room stares in silence as they watch the self-proclaimed billionaire be kicked out. I will sue you! She then swears a lot at my mom. That happened many years ago, and we never saw her again. Even if she tried to sue, the lawyer would have laughed her out of the park. She doesn't have a leg to stand on. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.